Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VectoScalar Tech Talk show. And in this show, we have an amazing guest. Dr. Alan Badeau is going to cover insights about AI, the new normal. So, welcome, Dr. Alan, to the show.
Thanks, Vegas. Great to be here.
Before we proceed further, let me introduce our guest speaker to you. Dr. Allen is an award winning CTO and serial entrepreneur, boasting over 2 decades of experience spanning federal, international, and commercial sector, and industry recognized authority in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and cybersecurity. Dr. Badeau has been at the forefront of public, corporate, and government adoption of cutting edge AI technology, including large language models such as GPT. In 2023, Dr. Badeau departed from his role as CTO of Empower AI, where he spearheaded product innovation, research, and development efforts for numerous intelligence and DoD classified organizations. He then founded Allen Badeau LLC, an AI consulting firm based in Key West, FL, dedicated to assisting companies in understanding, marketing, and deploying ethical and trusted AI solution. That's a amazing journey that you have covered, Alan.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun along the way.
So, for how many years you are particularly into the field of AI?
Well, it's been about almost 25 years. Started with genetic algorithms and working with the Center for Disease Control. Oh my goodness, in 1999 almost. So it's been a lot of fun along the way.
25 plus years. I think
Yeah,
we started having that craze typically in the business world in last 5 to 10 years, where we have become super conscious about it, but definitely a lot many development at that time.
yeah. We were in an AI winter back in those days. It was not a great field to be in, and when we these things aren't new, but just the data and the compute power has allowed us to get where we are today. I mean, the DEC Alpha computer was the big computer at the time that you could run some of these things on from a personal perspective. Otherwise, you needed a supercomputer.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. Things have changed a lot, but what is this context behind? Why do you think that AI is the new normal? What is the context behind that?
Well, I think, when you look at technology, there are a few industries where you can tell when a technology is mature enough to really start to ingrain itself. And one is video games, right? When things start showing up in video games, then they're pretty normal. And then the other is cookware. Believe it or not, it's cookware. It was last year when I was at an AI conference and I saw a rice cooker that had AI built into it, and all you had to do was dump in rice, and it would recognize it. It would cook it for you the exact time that it was supposed to be done. You didn't have to do anything else with it other than just to add water every once in a while, and that's when I realized AI was here to stay. And well, now look where we are.
That's an interesting observation because I can definitely relate to the video game, but cookware, that when something is ingrained into the cookware, we need to take it seriously. I think that's a
That's
different
right.
perception.
Yeah, and now
So,
it's in your refrigerator, your stove, your microwave. You can't get away from it now.
and in that case, it seems like that there may be at some places where it is exists, but we don't know.
That's right.
Yeah. So, how AI is enhancing the customer experiences in our businesses nowadays? What do you think on that?
Well, I think there are some really fantastic things that it can do. You know, it allows folks to try to find solutions for themselves, which is fantastic, right? Because then you don't have to wait online. You don't have to wait on the phone to talk to somebody. There are a lot of ways that it can accelerate how you are living your life. And you know the fantastic thing is, most people expect now where they want to be able to do things at home and then take that to work and then bring the work home and continue. AI, if you're working for certain companies, allows you to be able to do that, and you can accelerate how quickly you can get things done. You can get things done faster. You, as a a consumer of products now have a way that you can look up things a lot faster and understand them significantly better than before. It really is something that is revolutionizing the experience that a consumer has now with the product developer.
Yeah, that's a very interesting observation there and critical observation there. Uh, Alan, lot many times when a company is starting a new project, probably it's a startup, and you do a lot of consulting in artificial intelligence. What's the common things that you observe that people make the mistake? Probably the way they start the things and how they can change their strategy to implement AI.
Yeah, so when if you remember, because when ChatGPT released their API to the world,
Yeah.
within the first hour, there were 950 plus companies that had said, "Hey, we have AI now ingrained in our products," and that scared me. It really did, because there was no way every one of those companies understood the models, understood how to integrate them, understood their boundaries, and so the rush to really tried to take advantage of that profit, as well as the the all of the publicity that was getting. I think a lot of companies jumped the gun, and I think the biggest mistake that a company can make is to be in a hurry. If it takes you a couple of extra weeks to do an evaluation on a large language model to understand it maybe just a little bit more than you do today, I think that will go a long way for companies, because that's usually when I get a phone call, is when things go bad. When somebody has something that they need to fix, or they don't understand why something is working the way that it is, then that's when I will get a phone call from these companies, and that's when they bring me in to try to help them, solve a problem.
Okay, and that's a very pertinent point. That in some one of the conference there was this discussion that whether the AI was built by the engineering team or by the marketing team. So as you just talked about, that marketing team just included the word without engineering actually working on it.
Yeah, and that's a big issue, and I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that, from even from a legal perspective. There are rules of engagement from a business perspective, especially if you sell your business, right? That, oh, I'm doing AI and I've done this and I've done that. Well, have you? And that's the big question that a lot of folks have to take a step back and slow down a little bit, take your time, and actually do it the right way, because it is a powerful tool. I have not seen, you know, this is probably my almost my 100th different public speaking event since June, and I have not seen one industry where AI cannot help somebody. If you're own your own small business, then it can help run your books. It can do greater customer engagement, and that really goes across every single industry. So
Yeah.
the power of it is fantastic. But if you're in too big of a hurry and you're so worried about your competitors, then that's when you're gonna mess up and take a leap when you really didn't need to.
Yeah, so definitely it's a faster way of developing anything, and then fast way of spoiling the brand name as well if we
That's
play
right.
with those words. Yeah. In the meantime, I see a question coming from Saddam Hussein. So Saddam Hussein is asking, what do you see as the most exciting possibilities for AI in the near or distant future? You talked about that it's applicable everywhere, but what out of those, what is most exciting one?
Well, I think from a technology convergence perspective, whether it is 5G, whether it's quantum computing, or even some of these other bleeding edge type technologies, whether distributed ledgers, those kind of things. You know, AI is really pouring gas on that fire. That's really the best way to look at it, because now you have the ability to combine AI not only at a system level, but also at a customer level from an experience perspective. Then there's really no limit from a commercialization perspective to be able to take advantage of that. Now, some of the things that we're working on, it goes beyond your normal generative AI type models, and it's looking at things like neuromorphics and trying to show and predict things based on algorithms that run our brain and those sort of activities. And I think those are some of the things that I'm most excited about. Quantum computing, of course, that's another passion of mine. Being able to combine quantum computing with AI is really going to be mind blowing, I think. And that's when we're going to get serious about a lot of things that being able to process so much more and being able to really start to take advantage of those types of systems will be. I mean, I'm super excited about that.
Then that's a very pertinent point that you talked about, that there are enormous possibilities that exist. And I remember a conversation with a business leader, and who said that when he had the first experience of working on ChatGPT itself, he could not sleep for 2 nights, and just imagining the possibilities that exist, and how the existing mental models that we carry as a business owner, that this will work, this cannot happen, this can happen, all were shattered. And he had to rebuild everything from the scratch, that what is possible and what is not possible. So that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and I run into that every day. I've got 50 licenses for large language models, and I had to stop because it was starting to be an obsession where I wanted to try the new models out to see, oh, can it do this? Can it do this? How does this one behave versus another one? And they are very different. I interact with multiple models every single day, and there are significant differences in how they perform and how they behave sometimes. And I see that, as I'm looking at these, and the ability to apply them to certain businesses, and oh, this one will do a little bit better in real estate, for example, or this one does a little bit better in this other type of business, is really fantastic. It's phenomenal, and it's such an opportunity for folks to finally be able to take advantage of a tool set that is fairly easy to interact with. But on the flip side, you just have to be careful and do it in a safe and ethical manner, because sometimes they do misbehave.
Yeah, that it's a very critical thing that we take care of the way we are interacting with the system, because that all the possibilities that exist. Now, I have another question coming from Bhavna here. Bhavna Mia is asking, how can organization balance the benefits of AI with the need to safeguard sensitive information, or the other concerns regarding AI?
Well, that's a great question, because that's really the hot topic right now. From what they're doing in Europe with GDPR, and the US is, from my perspective, is a little bit behind from a regulations, and we see a lot of things on TV that are, oh, the House or the Congress is going to do X, Y, and Z, and the president's got his of course his AI Bill of Rights out there. But there are a lot of concerns around people putting PII in there. There are a lot of legal concerns when you look at how these companies are getting their data. Open source doesn't mean that I can just go in and use everything that I want and not necessarily tell you about that. And so there are some concerns, of course, about that. But really, from an ethical perspective, the problem that we have, and it really is a basic fundamental problem. We do not understand. Nobody does. And if they do, they're lying to you. There's no other way to put it. They don't understand why these models behave the way they do sometimes, and they don't understand when it's going to happen. So there are times that they will hallucinate. Now, they're getting better, but they still hallucinate. There are times that they will provide an answer that could be inappropriate. There's a reason why, and those really, really tiny letters at the bottom of these interfaces that say sometimes it'll give you the wrong answer. Well, that's just the reality of these things. And so, as you're trying to balance an organizational, I profit, how they're going to run those kinds of things with the sensitivity of just putting any kind of data out in those interfaces is a huge concern. And that's why there are still a lot of companies in the United States that you're not allowed to put it on any company device. JP Morgan took a lot of flack when they first released it because they wouldn't allow it on their phones, their computers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's that's still the case for a lot of other companies. And don't get me started on the government institutions, right? Because that's even a bigger concern for those folks.
Oh, I think it got muted. Yeah. So in the same line, we can see that there are roles played by individuals as well as organizations as well as the government, and each one of them is having to play their own role. We have another similar question coming from Naman Gandhi, that how can we ensure ethical and responsible use of AI in society, because there are multiple players in the market. Imagine people who are not even used to of using technology, probably elderly people who have just started using technology. And so what can we do? What are the other players who can do something for the to ensure that there is a ethical and responsible use?
I think it's around, that's a great, to build on the previous question,
Yeah.
there is only so far that we can go. You can look at cyber, and you can ask the exact same question with cyber, and we do all the time. How can we make sure that our employees are using whatever tools that we give them in an ethical manner? And the answer is you can't. You can do the best that you can. You can put policies in place, but people are going to be people, and people mess up, and they don't mean to necessarily, but things happen. Now, when you take AI and you put that on top of that, and you combine those two in such a powerful toolkit, you really have to up your game. And meaning, from a cybersecurity perspective, from a personal responsibility perspective, I think people, it's very easy for people to put blame in other places and say, oh, the AI did it, or this or that. The reality is I think that we are going to have a much more informed workforce when it comes to tools that are available to them. We're going to have some personal responsibility that we will put on those people for whatever types of activities that take place. But then at the same time, we have to have some laws that are in place, or put some laws in place that will protect our data. And that's really, if I was going to say I was, I would go on a soapbox and rant about something. It's, my data is my data, and I want to protect my data, and I want to give my data to the folks that I want to give my data to. Somebody shouldn't be able to come in and just take it and use it however they want without having my permission. And that goes all the way down to your code. It goes down to everything else involved in your personal life, your health records, everything. And these large language models, they don't know sometimes that they're scraping information that is PII, just because they're taking as much data as they can get. And so I think from that perspective, we've got to do a better job at policing those sort of things, and allow citizens to take their data rights back, because right now it's in essence we really don't have any.
Yeah. So it's very, very critical that we maintain that PII and data rights. Companies took some action. We saw companies giving that option that one can download all the data or delete all the data. But we know it must be just tip of the iceberg that we are interacting with. There must be a lot many things which are working in the background. So that's a north star to achieve, but let's see how industry different players come together to achieve that north star.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I think it's going to be over the next 18 months. It's going to be very interesting to see all of the legal ramifications that start to hit some of these things, because we're still in an infancy where we don't, it's a brand new tool. It's a huge capability. It snuck up on an awful lot of people, non-technologists, let's say that, and it's it's something that those ramifications are going to be felt for a very long time.
true, true. And as you mentioned that in the beginning that you have been in this field for 25 plus years, so which shows that being in US, probably things have been working, you are ahead of the technological curve. But there are many developing countries like India and other countries which are on the growing stage. But having said that, after attending so many conferences, especially the government ones, I see there is a lot of focus on artificial intelligence. So what's your experience, in your experience, if you have interacted with other developing countries, that what's your suggestion, how at the national level, what should be done to develop AI infrastructure better or build that capability so that nation can grow? Any two or
Yeah,
three pointers?
yeah. I would say that I've worked with a few, international companies or countries where they've done a really good job putting an emphasis on that. You know, but in some cases they really do have some bigger problems, and there are only so many resources that can be spread around the table. But what I would say is that it really does have to be, you know you've got to look at it from a different lens, especially on the government side, because this is a technology where it fundamentally can change every single thing about the way you live your life, how you get educated, how you interact with tools, what kind of business you want to start. Because if you think about it, and I tell folks this all the time, and this is such a powerful tool that you don't have to be a painter in order to have create a great work of art now. You don't have to be a computer programmer in order to create an application that can change people's lives. Now you've got a tool at your disposal that can do that for you. So if you have a vision and you have a goal that you want to achieve, now you've got a tool to do that. You have to be willing to understand it and try it and use it. We haven't had a technology like that in our history. And I think for developing countries, if they would look at it from that perspective, I think they would see that they're, go beyond the financial benefits. Think about how you can actually improve the lives of your citizens. Then you start to look at it from a different lens, and you start to embrace those kind of things. We're lucky in that the government has put a huge emphasis on AI. You know, they funded programs for years around AI and high performance computing and quantum computing now, those sort of things, and it gives us a head start. And I think as you transition some of those technologies from the government space into the civilian space, or vice versa, then that's something that is really outstanding. And so for developing countries, though, I think it comes down to having a strategy, figuring out a way that's going to improve your citizens' lives, and then trying to figure out who you can partner with, who you can work with to really facilitate that as quickly and let's be honest, price reasonably as possible.
Yes, that's those possibilities exist, and pricing advantage is always there. So we need to see that how those can be leveraged. I have a similar question coming from Saddam on the with the rise of AI. How do you foresee its impact on the job market and the nature of work? Because the profiles are getting changed. We always talk about that every 3 4 years, probably the new profile will come up. Prompt engineer is becoming a new kind of profile at the entry level. So
Yep.
how do you see that impact on the job market?
Well, I've seen that impact for the last 5 years. That I think our educational system is behind in getting folks to understand these sort of technologies. I think it hit a AI and ChatGPT especially. Our folks are coming out of school and they're not as prepared as they should be. So when you start to correlate that to the rest of the job market, you know, I tell people, it's not the AI over the next 2 to 3 years that is going to replace people. It's going to be somebody that understands and knows how to use AI that is going to replace somebody that doesn't. Because fundamentally, that's what I'm looking for, whether it's a software developer, an IT specialist, cybersecurity, they've got to understand these tools and be able to use them. And I would much rather hire somebody that does know how to use them as opposed to somebody that doesn't. And that's the greatest impact. We see these all the time whenever there is a technology shift or some sort of industrial revolution that changes the way that we do our jobs, and AI is doing that. The job market always lags. The job market, somebody is always being replaced by some sort of technology or machine, but we adapt. And we adapt by embracing that technology, learning it, not being afraid of it, and then trying to get those skill sets. But in this case, we've got to make sure our public institutions are teaching our students, our kids, or adults, the right way to use them, how to take advantage of those sort of capabilities, or even creating your own, for goodness sakes, and trying to learn and not be afraid to ask questions. AI is such a scary word to a lot of folks that they don't want to even go near it. And that's why I do some of the things like this and public events too. I do them for libraries, I do them for colleges and universities, because I want to get the word out and I want to show people that they don't have to be afraid of it. It can really change everything that you're doing in your daily lives, including how you work and how you hire people.
And that's very important, that the way things are changing, as you just mentioned, that we need to prepare ourselves in the time, and definitely the typical education system, college system, is not having all those things. You talked about that people should prepare, but it seems that Saddam is asking a very similar question in line, that what step can be taken to prepare the workforce for the changes brought by AI? Because it's not just colleges. I think a lot of companies themselves are doing massive programs on adoption of AI for the team. And when I started like this similar program some 3 years ago, it seems like we start with learning and all the statistics part, and people tend to resist that part because it seems like we are going back to the research and learning statistics, more or less. So what's your take on that? How to build that and integrate AI into the workforce?
I think, in some cases, this is not like Word or PowerPoint and you're forcing, oh, we're going to do everything with these tool sets. I think from my perspective, it is a very personal journey. How you use the tool, how you embrace it, how you feel comfortable with it. I was lucky enough that I've been a beta tester, you know, um, for many companies, and it gives me a little bit of an advantage where I get it before the general public gets to play with it, and I'll see how it goes. When I first did that for ChatGPT, it was a lot of fun because it changed how I went about my business during the day. It was at first it was just asking it questions. I was trying to treat it like Google. Remember when Google first came out and you're like, oh, hey Google, can you do this? What's it take to do that? Et cetera, et cetera. And I was using it in a very similar manner, but then I realized that I wasn't taking full advantage of the tool itself and its real power, which is, you know, being able to communicate in a way that is very easy to get information back to the user and get answers that may take days, weeks, etc. to try to get. And I think as companies are moving forward with whatever their AI strategies are, I really hope that at least some folks have started it. They're by no means mature. Let's put it that way. But some of the ones that I'm working with, but they're trying. They're trying to play catch up. But you have to embrace HR. You have to embrace IT. You have to embrace security. And then start really trying to move forward with what you want your employees to get out of it, what sort of experience you want them to have with that tool set, and then how is it going to benefit the enterprise as a whole. And if you can't answer those questions, then don't give it to your employees because you're not ready for it. But if you can answer that, then you can start to do training. Then you can start to have different sort of decision making capabilities, those kind of things, and that will go a long way from an employee perspective. Because I'll tell you, kids that are coming out of college, or even folks that are working or coming out of the government and they're going into the private sector, they want to work with something cool. They want to do something that is going to be exciting for them. And if you're doing things still by spreadsheets and those kind of things, that's not exciting for a lot of folks. And so it's going to be harder to hire folks at the same time. So it's really a broad effort that's going to take everybody involved in the organization to really change how that's going to all happen.
And listening to your thought, it seems like probably, as you just mentioned, that it's not a WordPress or Microsoft Excel that you just learn the tool complete and you start adopting it. Probably it's more of at more granular level, it's more of a different way of solving problems, which
Absolutely.
we have not probably developed ourselves in that context. So we need to see the problem, the situation in hand, and probably adopt a different mindset altogether, that how this problem can be solved. Probably that's a way. It's more than a technology, it's more granular, as you that seems to me, right, based on this conversation.
That's exactly right. And it also, if you think about how we make decisions, and I pause there on purpose, because how a person takes different perspectives and tries to make a decision, that's going to influence everybody from a junior analyst all the way up to a CEO. Because I have seen fundamentally how it reshapes activities that take place in scrum meetings, activities that take place in boardrooms where executive decisions are being made. And it either, it's kind of like, Captain America, the movie Captain America. When he drank the serum, it makes the great parts about you even greater. It makes the bad parts about you even worse, because it really does. Because if you have a dominant personality, and now that you've got an AI sidekick sitting on your shoulder, then your dominant personality comes out even more, because now you're definitely right, because the AI is even saying that you're right. If you're more subdued and you're a little bit quieter, then the same thing happens, but now you're less convinced, because, well, did I use the right model? Should I use this other model? Do I need to check it 50 times instead of 20 like I'm used to do? And so it really does change the dynamics of the decision making process itself. And so again, it's that whole broad spectrum of understanding what you want to try to get out of that, and reshifting what those resources and how people are using the tool. I feel guilty now. I'll tell you, when I give a presentation, I'll do, or talk or something like that, I spend about 20 minutes on slides. That's it. And the rest is doing demos, and I bring up ChatGPT or Claude or Pi or one of the other ones that I use. I feel guilty when I don't let them introduce themselves, because that's the kind of evolvement that I've had since I've started this journey, because I really do use it in everything that I do. And by not allowing my partner to introduce himself, herself, whatever that is, I feel bad about that. And but folks will get there when they use it enough.
That's an interesting thing, that's what we are getting so many different perspective, that how AI, and as you rightly mentioned, it's more about the way we make the decision. It's more fundamental level. It's not just a tool. It's much more than that, a more fundamental thing, a different way of solving things. I've got another question coming from Sunil Singh. How much secure current AI data models are, which are attacked by malicious actors? So, are they really secure?
That is a double-edged sword question. It really is. So, you know, unless you can tell me with 100% certainty the data provenance is, that goes into training your model, then I would say, I cannot tell you that that data is secure, and I cannot tell you that your model is secure. Now, we take a step back and let's look at a little bit more of from a reality perspective. I think it's a little bit overblown from, oh, it's not secure, it's it's been, the data's been poisoned, your model's been poisoned now, and so everything's not gonna work. If you think about where we are from a technology perspective and how quickly this jumped up on a lot of folks, people haven't had enough time to poison as much of the data that's being used in training some of these models. When you've got 7 billion parameters, and that's this one of the smaller models, then your computer that can generate maybe, I don't know, 100 million if you're lucky. From a statistical perspective, 100 million, it's not a huge needle mover when you've got 7 billion parameters. So, I think we are at the early stages of that, but it's something that we have to pay attention to, though, because I'm a certified ethical hacker. Also, fundamentally, it changes how I look at the systems that I'm using from a cyber perspective, to think of, well, now I'm not going to try to hack a system anymore. It doesn't make any sense to do that, because now I can theoretically poison the data significantly easier than I can hack into the models. And so if I take that approach, then I will accomplish my objective significantly faster than not. And then it changes. It really changes the dynamics around that. But I think a bigger problem that folks need to pay attention to, we have had malicious actors since the dawn of time. There's always been somebody. You create something, somebody wants to get into it. And I go back to talking about, Ptolemy and Cebius, in the Greek days, when they created something, there was always that guy across the street that wanted to go kick it. He wanted to break it. And we have the same thing, the same problems that we had then. But now we have to think of, treating AI as an insider threat, just like we treat humans as a corporate insider threat or a government insider threat, because it can very easily do something that you didn't expect it to do. Like, oh, you put it in your proposal shop, and you want to just use it for proposals, and you haven't locked down the system, and you gave it access to SharePoint because it needs to read certain documents. And then the AI is going to say, I can't read that. I think I should create a Python code that'll allow me to read that. And then all of a sudden, you've gone from proposals to it creating Python by itself. And now it has figured out a way to get onto the internet and go do things that you never anticipated that it was going to do. I'm working with one company. They're called PSCI, Proposal Sciences. And that's really one of their fundamental things, is how to make sure that those sort of things don't happen. It's very... it is a game changer from a cyber perspective and a malicious actor perspective, in that you're turning folks into that, and you didn't realize that's what, even that person may not realize that that's happening. So really it makes CISOs' lives a lot more difficult.
As you rightly mentioned, actually, I'm also a certified ethical hacker, and I remember there is that extreme statement which says that ideal security is when the person who is like the ideal person, the good person, does not even get to know about it, and the person who want to do malicious thing cannot enter into that system. So whether it's physical
That's right.
security or the cyber security. And I remember there was a video where somebody hacked, probably changed that data on a Google map, so he took a bucket full of mobile phones over a bridge, and Google Maps started showing that it's a jam there.
That's
And
right.
it's a probably another and too simplistic model just to show that how you can change the system without doing anything. You are just changing the data, the way data is. So
Yeah,
possibilities are so
and
many.
well, and the amazing thing too is if you look at some of the recent events around these larger hacks that are taking place, they're not getting through the firewall. They're not getting through some of these systems. They are tricking employees of those companies using AI in many of those cases to, because the AI can be so convincing, they're tricking them into giving out credentials that they normally would not give out, right? I mean, you don't, if I call into a service desk, I should not be able to, with no ID, no job number, no personal information, be able to get anything, let alone some sort of credentials that, allow me elevated access. That's how. That's why AI is so dangerous, because if you want Morgan Freeman, for instance, to narrate something, well, all you got to do is put an algorithm in now, and it'll take care of that. If you want some credentials for something, all you got to do is put an algorithm in. That's kind of scary. But again, though, all these things are tied together. If you think about from the employee perspective, the employee training, the cybersecurity, you can't stop a person from clicking on an email, right? You train them, you do the best that you can, but you can't stop the ones that are just in such a hurry that they click everything. AI just makes it harder, makes it more difficult to do your job in some cases on the cybersecurity perspective.
That's so true. So again, it's an ideal state, and I think it's an ongoing journey. The tools will keep on changing, technology will keep on changing, but these are the ideals that will be always a race behind the security, and those things will also need to be taken care of. I would like to take the last question, because thanks for your time and you have answered all the question very well. I just wanted to take this last question, which is from Pashupati Kumar. How can a how can we achieve the balance be achieved between the hardware and software components in AI system to ensure optimal performance and efficiency? So what's your take on that?
That's a fan. I love talking about. I mean, we could do a podcast just about that. You know, the there's always this dynamic between the infrastructure that a developer wants in order to create that greater software toolkit, or get it to perform a little bit better, or crunch a little bit more numbers, whatever that is, versus the realities and the costs associated with maintaining that infrastructure. Traditionally speaking, applications on new hardware are always lagging, right? So somebody will build a brand new supercomputer and it'll be able to do, exaflops and do all this other things. But guess what? They don't have any applications that can run on those systems, because those systems just haven't had time to do that. We have seen that lag, though, with AI decrease significantly, simply because now a single card, a GPU, an NVIDIA 4090, for goodness sakes, you can do some amazing things with that. And so I think, as those hardware components have been, more commoditized, more affordable, then that has really allowed the from the software developer all the way down to the person just developing video games for fun, to really take advantage of those kind of things. And so the balance has started to shift. So until we have something like a quantum computer, then I think that will again change what that performance hardware software balance is going to look like. Right now, it's if you've got money to invest a little bit in some upgrades, I think you'll see a huge improvement in your software components and the things that those AI systems can do. Think about even just the large language models. I mean, a year ago we were like, oh, it's going to take weeks and 13 gazillion dollars to train one model. I've trained 4 models in the last 2 weeks on desktop computers that have 4090s in them, for goodness sakes. That's crazy. right? So it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and you talked about quantum, and I think Pashupati Kumar is having a similar question that how can artificial intelligence be effectively utilized on quantum computers? And you just talked about that. Probably that two combination is closer to your heart. That, but
Oh, it
still, any
is.
last thought on that part?
Yeah. So, if you look at, so I've been working in the quantum space for a while, since about 2005, actually. Worked with one of the first systems that was deployed into the U.S. Government space, and what it can do for very specific things is phenomenal. And you can use some quantum annealing techniques right now for image classification, because that's what those quantum annealing machines are fantastic with. D-Wave system is outstanding for those types of activities. And as you are rethinking the development of AI algorithms to run on those systems, which is actually, from a software perspective, lagging, right? But that's where that benefit will come into play. You see it on the analysis of fraud, and from deep web, dark web data. You see it in a lot of other optimization problems. Now, we will not have a fundamental impact on everybody's daily lives until, where's my phone? Until we can get a quantum computer that's the size of your phone. But when that day happens, holy cow, that will again, that will be another foundational shift in our daily lives that well, I don't even know how to predict the benefits around that, because they'll be huge.
That's going to be huge, and I think that's a closing remark. That when we are talking about and discussing about AI, every day seems like it's just the beginning. So AI
Yes.
is going to be the new normal, as you rightly mentioned. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks for sharing your expertise and insight with us. Thanks for being on the VectoScalar Tech Talk show.
I had a great time, because thank you.
Okay, thanks audience for being on the show, and keep watching VectoScalar Tech Talk, our weekly session, and enjoy. Thank you. Bye. Bye bye.